We now move on to the third panel discussion of this summit titled Impact of Digital Disruption on the Indian Manufacturing Industry. And first up, I'd like to call on stage the moderator of this panel, Amit Saluja, Senior Director and Head, NASSCOM COE, Gandhinagar. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly put your hands together for Amit Saluja. Thank you, and kindly keep the applause going as I welcome the three members of this panel. Subose Pai, Head Tech Growth Enablement, Innovation and Future Factory at SKF Bearings. Thank you for your applause. Welcome, Subose. Ajit Deshpande, Country Head IT India and ASEAN at Faurecia. Welcome, Ajit. Let's greet him too with a warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. And Paritosh Anand, Senior VP and Head Digital Platforms, Geo Platforms. Welcome, Paritosh. Just a reminder to all the moderators of the panel and sessions to follow, there is a monitor right in front of you where the time will count down for you. That's just so that you can keep track of time. In case you wish to take any questions from the audience, kindly do so within the time that has been allotted to you. Amit, over to you.
Thank you. I think it's been a wonderful few hours last time, and we have seen so many discussions that has happened. This is the topic, Industry 4.0. It's been talked about since a while, but I think every session that we attend, we take away a lot of those insights. That's something which can be used in our day-to-day plans, in our initiatives. So I think that's a charm of attending these sessions now. So the topic that we have is how digital technologies are disrupting the manufacturing. And maybe I'll give a little twist to that. Let's say that actually the manufacturing is already disrupted. So we need something which should come and help the manufacturing disruptions, correct? So it is the technologies, these are the solutions which is coming forward and helping the manufacturing save from the disruption. The kind of a disruption we have seen from a new constraints coming up in the last few years, I think they have been very exceptional. I'll not even talk about COVID. I mean, COVID we all know, but even after that, we are seeing the whatever it is happening in the China, there are so much of a supply chain issues which have happened through that. There's a Ukraine war is there, so economy is inflation going up and down, so which is what the overall demand is. You can't really predict it. The supply chain systems we had, the demand forecasting solutions we had, but everything is kind of going for a toss because the disruptions are really at a very, very different level what we used to see in the last couple of years. And good thing is, I mean, a lot of us have gone forward and adopted solutions. But again, may or may not be enough. These disruptions will continue, and then we need to be future ready. So I'm very excited to kind of talk on this topic with my fellow panelists. So thanks to all for kind of joining in, and then we welcome you and looking forward to have this discussion. So while we start, maybe I'll just kind of a little bit of a talk about what we are doing. So I had the NASSCOM Center of Excellence at Gandhinagar. This is the center which has been initiated or is set up with support from the Ministry of Electronics and IT and the state governments. And the whole objective was to help accelerate the adoption of the digitization in the manufacturing sector. And we are working towards building an ecosystem where large manufacturing companies, the SMEs, the solution providers, research organizations, they all can collaborate and work with each other to address the manufacturing challenges through the adoption. So that's what we are trying to do. And while we start, so maybe let's start with. We have been talking about Industry 4.0, and I will give opportunity to all the panelists to maybe start with and then talk about what you are doing in your organizations on the Industry 4.0, and what kind of challenges that you all are seeing. Where are we where are the opportunities, and then maybe let's get to the current state of where are we right now before we start talking about how do we prepare ourselves for the future. I think let's start with understanding where are we now. So Paritosh, maybe I'll start with you.
Sure. So I'll start with a contradictory statement, which I heard earlier in the session. So when I started my career in 2003, and we're sitting in 2023, and we're still talking about that it's a journey. So when I started in 2003, my boss told me that, Paritosh, it's a journey. And if in 2023, if you're still on that journey, then there's something which is wrong. Okay. So I would want to call this not as the journey, but our ability to be agile enough. Okay, because the journey will never end, okay, and this will continue. So in our ability to being agile enough, I think the Indian manufacturing industry has come a long way. Long way in the sense that, digitization, digitalization, and all those things have been, automation have been beaten to death. I think, most of the large corporates, conglomerates, are well ahead in terms of setting the infrastructure in place. The technology is there. But the question here is that are we utilizing that technology to its full potential? And that is the gap which we need to fill. So one of the things, how do we move from working in silos to create an integrated fabric which will bring this intelligence to life? And that is where currently, we are focused on that. Yes, we have built a good infrastructure. We are now building a grounds-up architecture which is, ready to be born, which is, I want to say, which is born digital, which is digital by design. And how do I extract intelligence out of it in order to be ahead of the game, in order to be more agile? And these systems will change. So obviously initiatives like data lake, data mesh, looking at various APIification between different systems is on priority right now. How do I remove the physical handshakes between two systems and replace it by an API, an automated integrated infrastructure, architecture, is where the current thought process is.
Thank you. Subose?
Yeah, thank you. And I think, rightly said by you, Paritosh, I think it's really important that are we really using the technologies to the fullest extent. And my perspective on Industry 4.0 and where we are is, I think from the overall industry perspective, we are pretty well educated, I would say, from the perspective of Industry 4.0 and what it means to the industry. But at the same time, there are different levels at which this education needs to happen. And I see that this education from the point of view at the worker level or at the level where the operators work is still a big challenge for us. Having said that, there is a lot of movement that has happened in Industry 4.0 implementation point of view in terms of application of digital technologies, sensorization of machines. A lot of automation has already kicked in. There are a lot of AI/ML techniques are being applied in pockets. But I would say that if we have to really digitize or digitalize the entire value chain, I think there is still more room for us to, or there is still a lot of work for us to be done. One of the initiative or one of the strategic objective at SKF is digitalizing the full value chain. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to connect our suppliers to our factories, and we have all the factories connected together, and then also our customers connected to the whole one ecosystem. And I think that will help us to drive the operational efficiencies, that the objectives are very clear on that. But I think we are taking some smaller steps in that regards. And I think there is certainly for us more from the perspective of how do we utilize the data? How do we generate those insights from the data that can be used for driving those operational efficiencies? That is the area where we really need to do a lot of work in.
Yes, Ajit.
So after, it's always pleasure and also a question when you have two eminent speakers spoke about their things and you are the last in the queue to speak. So I will not repeat some of those points because I fully echo it what both of them said. I give you a different perspective is on the more on the actual manufacturing side of it. And we talk about data lake and all those things, which we will talk little detail in subsequent point of it. But key parameters are how we actually digitize our shop floors. Connecting a shop floor to a top floor remains challenge. And those who are into and manufacturing can understand we have so many machines which are age old. Lot of those PLCs manufacturers or SCADA manufacturers are not in existence, or if they are existence, we have not taken AMC or upgrades has not happened. And we have so many manual stations also, which are like drilling and all those types of where we don't have even the provision of PLCs from where we can capture the data. But those are critical aspects of manufacturing processes. So our challenge remains is how we make them speak. How those machines which doesn't have so-called artificial intelligence talk to us and gives us the data. Yes, there are many theories coming up, power utilization factors and all those things, but that remains the challenge when we talk about entirety to be seen digital, and that's prime challenge I feel in the manufacturing area. For sure, when we talk about what we do in Faurecia, yes, we are talking about both. We are talking about digital twin, Palantir, data analysis and data science part of it, bringing AI into inspection and quality checks, RPA into financial services, employee touch with full digitization. So it's one end when we talk about top end side of it, which is where we do it, and on the bottom side of it, at the core of it remains manufacturing. And in manufacturing, we are doing MES, which is what all we do it, Customer Connect. And Customer Connect from the beginning itself. We are TZAC certified among few organizations in Pune to start with the TZACs, which is primarily the security compliance certification for doing the work with German OEM for R&D. So from that digitization control to a shop floor is what we are doing it.
Great. So thanks for this. So I think it's good to know the different initiatives that are being executed within the organization, and I think everyone here talked about customer experience, all about integrating with the suppliers, integrating with the vendors. So and then now we are talking about how do we prepare for the future. So in fact, a lot of us have even started talking about Industry 5.0. So whether we are there at Industry 4.0 or not right now in the country, but definitely the discussions have started happening on the 5.0. And for that, one of the key factor or the point which is coming up is the hyper-personalization. So the customer experience, the vendor experience or the employee experience, I think that's something which will become very critical when we go to the next stage, when we take the next leap. So I would like to have some discussion around this. And Subose, so we were talking, and then there's a lot of work that your organization has done in the regards on building a strong customer experience using those digital technologies and also for the internal. So any insights you would like to share more about how you are using the technology, what kind of benefits you have seen and the challenges that you're considering basically that have come across?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one key area, and I would say that it helps both ways. It helps us to know more about the customers so that we can really give them customized solutions the next time when we provide them the solutions. Now, one of the specific areas, I mean, we as SKF, I mean, one of our the key products is bearings. And anything that rotates, anything that moves, bearings are used everywhere. And many times what used to happen is there are a lot of our customers used to come to us with very standard kind of questions, because it's a big pain for them, to go through a catalog which is around 1,500 pages or 1,600 pages. right? And when you have that kind of a big catalog, it's very difficult to find. Even though if it is a soft PDF kind of a catalog, it is very difficult for them to go and find exactly what they're really looking for. And what it used to do, they used to reach out to us through our distributors. And what it used to do is a lot of our application engineers used to spend a lot of time in finding solutions for them and giving them solutions. That, again, it was a loss of time for our personnel, but also at the same time, there was a loss of time in giving solutions quickly to the customers. So we seek this as an opportunity, and what we really did is we really converted this whole catalog using the Microsoft Azure, and we converted that into form of questions. So basically, a tool was formed on it, which was more of like a chatbot, I would say, where the customers used to come, they would post in their questions, and they would give some directions. They would get directions, I would say, on where exactly they could locate this information in the catalog. Now, I would say this is just the first level of it. And the way we are thinking about is going far beyond it, because the way it helps us is the customer comes in, they put in all their preferences, they put in all their information. Those become a really important source for us, that this customer, what kind of products that they typically use, this customer or a customer, what kind of products they use, what kind of requirements that they really have. And those become an area for us to give them more application-specific solutions that we may call them as. So as a first step, what we are doing is it is more of giving them information in the catalog. But the next step that we are really looking at is this information is going to come to us, and it is going to be more of like prescribing them, hey, if you, instead of using a deep groove ball bearing, you probably might want to use a taper roller ball bearing here, and here are some of the bearings that might be of value to you, because these are your application needs, and from your application needs, this is something that we could do. Now, what that meant is it freed up a lot of the time from our people, right? And they were then spending more time on or deploying their more time on building those use cases, or building those the backend material, which would then use the AI/ML techniques, right, to give them the recommendations. So that's the way we have kind of utilized that time, freed away their time, and utilized their time to do more value-added work. And at the same time, we have seen that over the last, I would say 7-8 months, initially it was a very slow progression or very slow start in the customers really using it. But now, more and more customers, we are seeing a lot of hit on that particular tool, because it gives a very quick solution to the customer. And basically, that's it's making the customer happy, because they're getting the solution at their fingertips. And also at the same time, it gives us opportunity to give them very customized and very specific solution which they might desire in the future.
Okay, so that was basically the challenge, right? So making them on board, making them understand the value of it, and then once they understood, I think they really kind of started using it. So yes, that's the one way to get them on board, right?
Yeah, that's the one way to get them on board. It was a challenge for sure to change that mindset, going from you can quickly reach out to a person rather than going to a tool, some kind of a tool, and putting the information in there. And then it took us some time, but it called for a continuous dialogue with the customers through our distributor network. At some point of time, some of our customers were pretty upset about it also, because we were not responding, because we deliberately wanted them to use this tool, because we know what is the benefit that they are going to have it in the long run. But I think those efforts are paying off.
So the persistence paid off.
The persistence paid off, and now we are seeing the benefits coming out of it.
Oh, great. So Alok, so I think maybe taking this conversation from here, so I think while Subose talk about how do the engagement with the customers basically happen, and I think the next step towards this is the digital ecosystem. So the the right collaboration platform, I think that are very much needed now to engage with customers, with vendors and everyone. So any experience you would like to share about what kind of an collaboration platform, those ecosystems that you are using within your organization, and then how those are helping you to better integrate with your ecosystem partners, whether they are vendors, suppliers, or the customers?
Yeah, I mean, for a success of any process, it's essential that entire ecosystem starts moving it. Otherwise, some process moves faster, some process doesn't move faster. So, or some remains manual, and that becomes the bottleneck for the overall speed of the things. In Faurecia, we have done most of our ecosystem built, which we are connecting from a customer, because we are into a product like seats, exhaust systems, infotainments, and all those comes as a part of the car which all of us drive. So we are proud to say that one of the second car, two out of three cars, two cars are having at least Faurecia product in it. So that's where we connect with the customer. When the concept evolves, we talk about cockpit of the future, where we take even, I know I'm digressing from a question, but still I am on the first question to answer it. So all of us are now having a Bluetooth enabled phone device into the car. And generally the driver who is the whose mobile gets synced and there is an office call, so entire family keeps listening to the office conversations. We are coming with a product with a seat which has a dedicated speakers for the each seat. So you need not required to be listening to the boring office meetings or bosses firing or any challenges. So those types of futuristic products are coming from Faurecia, and that's where we are collaborating in the ecosystem on the digitizations. When you talk about seats, you have other features which are directly depend on the physics of a person, the postures and all. And that's where we are utilizing the digital aspects on a real-time basis to work out. And this is where we first connect with the customer. And that's where when we talk about ecosystem, we start with the customer, building the concept, putting it into the vehicle. Manufacturing and R&D becomes the most critical part of it. And we might be among few of organizations who are using Kanban concept in R&D. And then going into the manufacturing. And the critical part before manufacturing is the supply chain. And we are collaborated entire supply chain on a digital platform. You get typically supplier relationship management tools gives you demands and all those things. But we capture from a customer, even our suppliers, the process data, that how and when he has and who has manufactured those things. So that collaboration goes up to that level. Obviously, prove out and all, where we use a lot of AI and digitization aspects. And coming back again, customer, thanks to some of the digital initiatives of e-invoicing and all those things, we started giving digital data. And the process data also goes back to the customer. So design comes and the end results comes up with the data to the customer about all the processes. So this is how the entire cycle is built. And we are not very specific with one product. We are choosing always best in a breed, whatever suits for an organization. And that's how we have integrated ERP, SRM, CRM, PLM together as a one platform.
Great, thanks. So maybe I think you really talked about more very much from the external point of view. Paritosh, so you're building a platform within, correct? So that whole platform is building up. And I'm sure within that there will be a lot of collaborations which will be happening within the Reliance businesses. So I want to take this conversations towards more of an internal collaboration. So what kind of an ecosystem or digital ecosystem that you have in place that is helping you drive that internal collaborations between the different Reliance units?
See, so whether it's an external situation or internal situation, what has happened fundamentally is that the customer cohort, has shifted from n equal to x to n equal to 1 now. So we're living in a very hyper personalization, era right now. We're talking about, TikToks and, your Instagram reels, which is at 30-second, attention span. We're talking about Chat GPT, where it's very specific. It's not about searching and giving back 50 different websites where you go and scrape all that information. It's synthesizing all that information and giving it to you. So in this hyper-personalization era, whether it's internal collaboration or even a customer acquisition, I think customer acquisition is not a challenge anymore for a B2C business, because of they have the data. It's just how beautifully they can use this data to their advantage. But going forward, customer engagement will be the key, challenge. How do I make sure that I retain the customer in my ecosystem and the customer doesn't go and spill into, a different ecosystem altogether? Because once the customer changes the ecosystem, it's very difficult to acquire him or her back. So from an internal perspective, our platform is to, build something with this UI and UX in mind, with this mentality, with this philosophy in mind that it has to be, hyper localized, hyper personalized in terms of to drive innovation, drive collaboration, not just, within the ecosystem players, whether it's between the lands companies or the value chain, but also be available from an external point of view. So how do I collaborate with other ecosystems and build bridges so that, instead of losing the customer to an altogether different channel, I can still retain the customer into my ecosystem. So from a platform perspective, these are the, what I would say, design principles, okay? In terms of that, yes, it has to be digital, it has to be intelligent, it has to be, personalized, it has to be engaging enough, it has to be agile with respect to, the changing customer requirements. Now, from a manufacturing point of view, the same, principles apply to external ecosystem as well. So when you are trying to build those customers, bring into your business.
No, absolutely wonderful. So maybe let me switch gears now. So we were talking about the disruptions, and Paritosh, I'll ask again the next question again back to you. The disruption in the last few years, as I talked about, has as one thing that has really come up the most essential is the remote operation. So how do we collaborate? And then there are always situations where the manufacturers is engaging with the customers remotely, or a lot of times there are situations within the plant where worker is working on something and then supervisor need to guide. Sometimes worker is always there, maybe there in some hazardous situation where again the supervisor needs to kind of have that discussion. So remote operations, I think that has come up as a big need from a disruption point of view, from the future point of view. And I think we have seen a lot of those things have started coming in place also. So the AR-based solutions have really made a lot of things possible. Metaverse is coming in, but let's restrict ourselves right now to AR. So, Paritosh, I think you will have a lot of good examples to share around this on how AR is helping on the driving remote operations in the plants.
So as an organization, we work in a very hazardous environment. If you're working in oil and gas, offshore, and AR and VR is really going to change the game from a safety point of view. Okay, not only just safety point of view, even the maintenance part of view, because right now we cannot afford to have shutdowns, or what we say long maintenance schedules. So we need to whenever an inspector goes there and checks the system, and if there's something wrong with the system, they need to immediately order that part. Okay, and it's no longer a manual process. It's the ability to do this on a real-time basis. The need is very strong there. And I think as AR and VR, the technology, the cost goes down, the more and more, see, it's a cost game right now from an AR and VR perspective. So more than, as soon as the cost becomes more scalable, I think it has the potential to rapidly disrupt the safety and the maintenance business continuity area. And I think a lot of the organizations are already talking about it. Earlier we had a session on metaverse, and and how metaverse is going to change, from a industry perspective. So I think it's a reality. It's coming soon, and that's why we have to be agile as a manufacturing organization. As I said, you have to adopt to the need, and as soon as that needs to be addressed. So I'm very what I would say, hopeful and aggressive about these technologies getting adopted from a use case to a mass utilization.
Great, thanks. That's a very important point. So now, Subose, so maybe we were just talking before the session, and while Paritosh talk about more from a safety point of view, I think you had a great story where you were engaging with the customers using these technologies and which really brought in a lot of benefits to your organization. So, I mean,
Yeah, I think, as rightly, definitely agree with you, Paritosh, that it is going to make a big change from the safety perspective, especially when you're working in very hazardous environment, very corrosive environments and things like that. But at the same time, when there are issues with the customers, really what matters is how quickly you can give solutions to the customers and how quickly you can resolve their problems. One of the challenges that many times we used to face is customers used to reach out to us. We used to, and this is something that I'm talking about, where there are large bearings put on machines like windmill applications or very large gearboxes in cement industries, and so on. And these are very, very large bearings. And in that scenarios, of course, equipped with a lot of sensors and all of that. In those scenarios, what we used to typically do is to reduce this time. We used to have an upfront call with the customers, and we used to give them a written kind of a procedure as to, okay, you probably might want to do this and just dismantle it before, their maintenance department, before our application engineer comes there, and then we can give you the solutions very quickly. But seldom what we saw that the customers would tend to not do it. And it was not that they didn't want to do it, but because those costs of those parts are so high, they would want to say that, no, we would rather want you to come and do it, right? And because they didn't know exactly the procedures and all of that, even though it is written there, they probably would hesitate there to do that. So what we are trying to do with, and it's not yet implemented, but what we are trying to do is we are trying to use the AR technology here, where remotely the engineers, application engineers could work with the customers and guide them step by step as if the person is there along with them to do it, right, to their maintenance personnel. And this is kind of really helping us to gain the confidence of the customers and also make sure that we are able to give them the solutions very quickly. And many times what happens is there are a lot of times contaminants just stuck inside, and it really don't need the application engineer to visit there, right? And it is just a matter of just flushing out some of those contaminations, and that still works, right? So holistically, if you look at it, these are some of the technologies which are going to help us to give very quick solutions to the customer, minimize some of those unwanted costs that are involved in the person traveling there and giving them the services when it is really not needed. And I would say these are some of the ways that we are using those technologies, or rather they are going to be used in future to disrupt how we are going to service or cater to the customer needs very quickly.
thank you. So I think that's absolutely a must. I think in the current environment for any manufacturing organization, the remote operation is kind of a must. Like we are talking about within healthcare, like remote diagnosis, and in the manufacturing, this remote operation has to be there. So I'm just looking at the time, so it seems like we're out of time, but I still have one last question, basically, which we will bring it up. And this is the question, basically, why it is important, because in the room, we have a lot of SMEs also, and this is something, I think, which is extremely critical for the SMEs also to start adopting the technologies, because I think the large companies have really given us a lot of success stories of the adoption of the technologies. It's up to the SMEs now to come up and then take some of these things and then try out the things, because until the SMEs also start using the technology, a real integration between the large and the SMEs cannot be very effective. So my last question, I think, will be to all three of you, if you can be just very brief and quickly. Maybe you can share something from your side, maybe either say with your suppliers you have seen on what are the things that have been working with the SMEs on how you are integrating with them, or what kind of initiatives those SMEs are taking, or maybe you have any suggestions for the SMEs out here. So Alok, maybe I'll start with you.
Okay. To specifically say in a quick time, we need the suppliers or the partners to be on board, and we categorize into A, B, C. Basically, those A means where we need to have lot of automation, where we can build the product and can give it. And we have formed a group called DSF, Digital Software Factory, who prepares a smaller apps which can be deployed at the supplier ends or the SMEs who can give us the data, which is an essential, as well as their process parameters, quality system standards. B is where we are showing them the product, and if they are interested, we can support them in deploying it. And C, we are doing it in a consultancy where they are interested. We can give our products, or we can suggest them what are the various open source products are available, which are, why I said open source products more are because of the cost factor, because SMEs cost matters. Digitization is need, but they have to also look at the cost. So from these three perspectives, we are helping our supply chains to become more digital and more collaborative with us.
Thank you. Subose?
Yeah, so what we are trying to do here is one of, like I said at the beginning, one of the key initiatives that we have is to connect our full value chain. One of the important part of it is the upstream, where we are connecting our suppliers to our manufacturing plants. And a lot of those suppliers are SMEs. Now, the biggest challenge that we face is the amount of their digital readiness. Right, how much they really understand it, how much they are really onboarded onto our platform. So basically, we have a group internal to SKF, which is called as a Future Factories Group. And what we really do is we build this platform. We partner with some of our strategic partners and to have this platform, which is internally built to connect our suppliers to us, so that we can see the inventories at their end, they could see the inventories at our end, and then basically we can plan what parts need to be shipped to warehouse and so on. Like I said, that the bigger challenge was the readiness of the suppliers. So what we are doing is we're taking structured approach from the point of view of step-by-step onboarding those suppliers with us, educating them, helping them understand the systems. As a first step, it is still a manual data entry that we are still having the suppliers, do that. But in the long run, the vision is it is most likely going to be more of RFID, the scanner-based systems, which it would not need a whole lot of data entry or manual intervention. It could be just you could scan the products and that could just enter the data into the system, and then that is shared over the network. So I think that's the steps that we are taking. But I think one of the important thing that is there is we will have to take those SMEs along with us,
Absolutely.
help them, and at the same time, this is going to help us to digitalize the whole value chain. So that's the approach that we are really taking with SKF.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks. Paritosh?
So I'll agree with both the panelists. So there's a phrase in Hindi called Bahujan Hitay, Bahujan Sukhay. It means if we can only benefit, the ecosystem can only benefit and everybody can win together if everybody is part of that ecosystem. So as large conglomerates, it's our imperative duty to make sure that these SMEs do not miss on the digital revolution, not because it is important for them, but it is equally and more important for us as large players, so that there are no digital breaks in the ecosystem, because that's going to hit everybody equally hard. So so some of the companies who are a little ahead in this chain. I'll use the word, I don't like the word journey, but I'm going to use this. Some of the players who are a little ahead in this journey, it's very important for them to bring the rest of them together into the same platform, the same stage. Otherwise, this will not work. So I finally give an example. So you may have pearls, but if you do not have a string that connects these pearls, and you will not be able to make a fine necklace. And that's what the digital need of the hour is, that not just one company races ahead in the digital revolution of 4.0, but brings everybody along together with it to take out the maximum potential.
Absolutely. I think you said it right. So we need that string. I think that's how maybe I'll just kind of summarize. So we really need a string, which is essentially the ecosystem. And this ecosystem only will make us future-proof from the future disruptions that are that are coming along. I mean, I'm sure this disruption, what we have seen is just not the end. There will be lots more which are there, so need to be prepared for it. And the only way it has to be is through this ecosystem and collaborations, taking care of employee experience, driving internal collaborations within the teams, within the organizations. We are remote. We talked about the remote operations, which is again actually very critical. And there is actually a couple of more points which we wanted to talk. I mean, I think one area definitely I would like to highlight is about we already have a lot of data in place. There is a good connectivity which has been established. We are acquiring the data, but the thing is those data is still not getting analyzed for the real-time insights. I think that's the other thing we really need to see is how do we really build a data-driven real-time organization. I think this is the topic which has been talked about a lot, but still not many of us has moved ahead with those data science initiatives to make sure that we are coming up with a great insight. So I think that's the other thing, maybe due to lack of time, we are not able to talk on that, but that would be my summary. So thank you for listening in. I'm not sure whether we have a time for questions, so okay, answer is no. So thank you all for listening to us, and thank you to all my panelists for sharing those wonderful insights. I mean, it's been great learning, and yeah, looking forward to engage again. Thank you.